So now we're going to move over to talking to Jenny Nurick. And Jen Nurick's actually the president of IEHA, and she's worked strongly in working strongly with counselling and one-to-one reaching out across space and time to talk to people and help them through. So I'd love to hand it over to Jennifer to talk to you about how she's built a across the world business online.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
And I used to be the president of the Energetic Healing Association, and that recently changed to Christy. So I'll just flag that because I think she's here. You can give us a little wave, Christy, if you're here. Okay, beautiful. So, sorry?
I just congratulated Christy because I saw it come through on your newsletter, but I just thought I'd take the opportunity to congratulate her. And
yeah, beautiful.
As well, Jen.
Thanks. Okay, so I'm currently on Gadigal land in Malabar in Sydney. It's a beautiful area of Sydney, and I've been working online for ages, at least 10 years. And before COVID, my practice was already about 80% online. So when I first started going online, my practice was mostly energetic healing, and through COVID, my practice is primarily psychotherapy. So, but I still do a bit of both. And what Jason and Shelley were saying about energy traveling, it totally travels. It's kind of beyond time and space, and the energetics are still very potent, is my experience and that of my clients. So I'm very excited to talk to you about connecting online, because I do think it is a very potent tool, and it brings the world into our healing spaces, which is such an opportunity. We can go on to the next slide. Thanks, Amy. Okay, so for me, we have to remember that we're all human, and that one of our most innate desires as humans is to be in community and to want to connect. And so whoever we're speaking to online, I almost feel this kind of reaching through, like they're reaching out towards me and I'm reaching out towards them. And as long as there's that desire to want to connect, then, and you've probably felt it when you speak to family online. Sometimes you can have a cup of tea and speak to your family over Zoom, and it feels like you've actually been together for an hour in quite a yummy, nurturing way. And it's really no different. So yeah, I see it as just another way to connect and another way to have intimacy and for us to support each other, especially through the kind of times we've just gone through. Next slide. Thanks, Amy. Yeah, so I kind of did a brain dump here, and I thought I'll just go through, and these are just bits that kind of really stood out to me that I thought would have been good for me to know, or would be helpful if I'd have known beforehand. So first up is I'm always quite mindful of my environment. So I'm always in the same space, and I adjusted my computer the other day, and all of my clients straight away said, "Oh, you've moved." And so it's interesting how a client will kind of imprint the environment that you're in. And I don't mean to kind of limit that at all, because it could be beautiful if I was in a natural surrounding, but I do get a sense that there's some kind of stability in me being in a consistent space, that they're used to me in this space, and it's kind of stabilizing and creates a feeling of safety. And so why that's important in my work particularly is I do a lot of trauma work. So it's quite deep trauma processing style work. And phase one of that work is safety and stabilization. So being mindful of my own environment, but also being mindful of the client's environment. Now, is their environment supportive? So, you know, sometimes I have a lot of clients who are kind of in house shares, and they don't really want their neighbors or flatmates to hear what they're talking about. And so I have a lot of clients who they're quite creative. They've found white noise stuff, and they'll put white noise on in the background, and then they put me on their headphones. And so it muffles what they say and nobody can hear what I'm saying. So that's something that you could kind of bring up for your clients. I have a few clients who meet me in their car. So they're on their phone, in their car, they've got a nice contained space. It's private, again, because they live with family or with people that they'd like to discuss. So another way to have privacy. Now, another great thing about them being in their own environment is you can kind of see the environment they're in, but a few of my clients have pets who come into the sessions in really beautiful and supportive ways. And because pets, I mean, you know about how we can work with sort of therapy animals, that while something is happening, it can be quite supportive for some people to have their pet close or know that they're in the house. They almost come in as an ally, or even like a spiritual ally, even if they're asleep in the garden. And that's quite beautiful as well. Yeah, and I've got some clients that especially I'll just check in. Have you got everything that you need around you? Some clients have like a supportive blanket. I've got a couple who have a supportive toy, and just things around them that they might need during the session. Next slide, please, Amy. Talked about that. Yeah, and the warmth really I find comes through that, yeah, checking in, where are you today? I have a client who moves space quite regularly from home to another space. So we often start with, oh, where are you? How's that feeling for you? And that kind of warming up, you could call it, I guess, at the beginning. Another super practical thing is a lot of clients don't know that they can pin your image so that your image becomes the large image on the screen. And I don't know if any of you experience this, but sometimes if I'm in a meeting with someone else and I can see myself equally as large as the other person, it's just kind of disconcerting. So a lot of my clients, as soon as I say, oh, pin me, make me big, and you'll go small, they're like, oh, that is so much better. And you can actually even hide your self camera. And then it really gives you a stronger feeling of, okay, it is just me and you and we're having a conversation. Okay, so I have quite a big social media profile through Instagram. And what I've found with that is that the benefit of that, and I think even if you don't have a large following, if you're putting out content, is that people get a feel for who you are and the kind of work that you're doing before they book the session in. And often they'll have a sense of kind of meeting you before you come in. So I'll have clients come in sometimes and they'll say, oh, and I saw that you that you do EMDR, and I did some EMDR a few years ago, and they've already kind of know bits about me and how I work, and they've already made a decision really that I could be a good fit for them. So I think that's probably the biggest advantage around having a social media presence, so that when people and nowadays, everybody's going to type your name in and see what comes up, that they get a feel for you and your work. Now, people in different time zones, you know, the biggest thing that used to catch me up was when our clocks changed, or, you know, I've got a lot of clients in America and Canada, and I mean, I have no idea when their clocks are changing, right? And I'm in Australia, they've got no idea when mine are changing. And I would find we would often get the wrong times. So what I've done is on my booking platform, I've got a link through to Zoom, and it does an automated Zoom link when they make a booking. And the benefit of that is it automatically changes it to their time zone. It plops it in their diary exactly in their time zone. So if there's any clock changes, it fixes that. So I highly recommend that. I use a system called Acuity, and I also use the Soul Advisor space, and they're linked together. So that's something that you can have Acuity, link up your Zoom meetings, and link up Soul Advisor. I think that might be my last slide, Amy. Is that it? Oh, no, okay, I've got another one. All right, so yeah, this was more about kind of tracking. So as we're doing the work, you might notice that your client will suddenly, take a deep sigh, and that's a nervous system reset. You can also track their body, if their shoulders start to come up as they're talking about something, if they start kind of fiddling quite a lot, or their eye movements get really so just really watching for that body language and being curious about kind of what's going on. Something else is, and in some modalities, they ask you not to be kind of too impacted by how the client feels or what they're sharing. But I think it's essential to bring in our humanity into the space, that if someone shares something that is really intense and traumatic, and as you imagine that happening for the person, you imagine how awful that would be, then to authentically share that, you know, like I imagine that would be, and to sort of step into their world, which is the definition of empathy, you know, to step into that and share those moments of humanity. Another thing I did at the beginning is I would have my Zoom screen over there with my client, and I'd have my client notes on this side, which was super helpful for me until I was working with someone and they were my therapist. And as they were looking at me, they had two screens. And whenever they were looking at me, their eyes kept on going over there. And I realized how distracting it was, even being off. They were put off a little bit more than I was, and I was just looking more to the side. But you can see my eyes, I don't know how big I am, moving to the side. So what I've done now is I shrink down the page into the middle, and then I have notes on the side. So I just switch that up. And again, that's something I've just learned along the way. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, and I'm very happy to, if anyone wants to speak more, for you to book in through the Soul Advisor link. And thank you very much, Soul Advisor, for hosting this. I think it's a great space. It's very exciting to work with people online. It gives people a lot of freedom as well. A lot of my clients don't want to travel for an hour, because even in Sydney, it can be an hour to get to me and then an hour to get home. And that's a huge time investment. So I've actually found that often clients will come for the first 1 or 2 sessions, and then something happens and they say, oh, can we do it online this time? And then they never come back again. I just see them online. So I think that's a really good advertisement in a way for working online as well.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for all that wisdom and some really good practical tips, you know, like that you just don't know till you know those things, you know, that you shouldn't look that way and how disconcerting that can be. And I was really interested that you brought in tracking, breathing, deep sighs, body, etc. online. Do you find it's easier to do that online than if you had them in the same room?
It's easier in the same room, because then you get the bottom half of the body and you can see what's going on with the feet and hands as well. But there is still, especially with the deep breath, because it's you can always tell there's been a shift when you see that. Something happened, and you can see it online.
Yeah.
And doing other certain energetic stuff, suddenly people will suddenly go, and their whole body will straighten up and lift. Again, you know, and then bringing attention to that, and oh, what happened there?
Yeah, it demands you to be observant, doesn't it, when you've only got a small square that you're looking at of that person. So thank you so much for presenting as you just did. It's a huge addition to what we're learning tonight, and we'll ask lots of questions at the end.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you.